So we put a little comment out to send in your questions, and honestly, it was like 15 seconds. So here we go. I'm going to try to tackle some of these, and this may take us many blogs to get these out, but we're going to get going on it now.
Okay.
You know, I think maybe it's because it's kind of a trauma thing, but I broke my arm when I was like 2, and I remember so many things about it. I think, you know, on a swing set, there's the A on the end, and we used to stand on the crossbar, and I mean, we were little kids. It must have been a small swing set, but then we would go across the top bar, like hand over hand, right? Who was watching us? I don't know who was. And I got a little bit out there. I mean, I was 2. I was like, you know, pint size. And I started yelling for my sister to help me, help me. And my memory over the years has been that she plucked my fingers off the bar, but she probably helped me. I don't know what. Anyway, I fell and landed on a sprinkler. And my mom came out like, oh my God, you know what happened? And she was soothing my back. And she says, I raised my arm up and it was, you know, like, eek. And so, but I do remember being on the swing set and being on the grass. And different things about that broken arm and different times there with the cast and getting people to sign it and the itch inside. I used to tell my mom I'd named these the people who lived inside my cast Yehudi. I don't know what that is. And I'd say, oh, Yehudi's in there walking in the high heels and it's so itchy. But the legacy that this has left me, I'm trying to talk fast so I can get my story in a short amount of time. The legacy it left me, and I was just telling my younger son this the other day, of course he thought it was silly, but if I see certain kind of cracks in the dirt or some kind of crack, it gives me the chills. And I think it's because the doctor, when he cut the cast off, it was these big chomped scissor things, and they were super cold. And as I was and me as a little kid watching him and the crack and the cold, it's a totally bizarre thing. But when I see certain kind of cracks, it makes me kind of itch and I get chills and weird. So I'd probably say that's probably my first memory. That's kind of a tough question because I like to do so many things. I feel like when I was younger, I was more focused about them. And I used to stay in my garden, you know, 12 hours or something on a day off. I probably wasn't really 12 hours, 6 hours. And I loved it, but now as I'm older, like, you know, my back hurts if I stay out that long, so I don't do that as much. But if I know that I have a week off from work, which happens once a month, we have a week off, I am shocked at how busy I can be and doing different things. Like today, we just went to this fabulous lady's house and shot a vlog with her. I went and saw my mother in Orange County, which is, you know, about an hour from here yesterday. The day before, I was with my friend because she's buying a house, and we have this little committee of 3 close friends, and we all go there and we put our input. And so now, you know, she's putting the closet doors I suggested and the something my other friend does, you know, like this kind of thing. So we all, and our husbands all call it the committee. So I'm never at a shortage of things to do. I don't like to sit still. I really don't like to sit still. But I have to say, Instagram and things like that have kind of sucked me down some rabbit holes. Like, I can kind of waste a few hours just looking at Pinterest or Instagram or something like that. So, I think that's pretty much what I do. I mean, Stephen really does, and that seems odd, I know, because he seems so serious. But this is what happens. It's so funny, and this has happened to us on the phone actually. When we run lines together. When you run these lines, you're so serious, and we're running them, and a lot of times I've looked, and so I have the general idea, or I think I have it, but I don't. I'm not a detail person, so I didn't look at the actual this word or that word detail. And so we'll be running lines, and sometimes he'll just look at me and go, "No, like that can't be it because it doesn't make any sense in English." And then he'll look it up and he'll fix it or whatever. And so that sometimes will get me going. But then sometimes, honestly, just if we step back. If you step out for a second and really hear what you are saying, and sometimes it's like a kidnapping or a poisoning, or we will be hysterically laughing, and we can hardly get through it. And it's happened actually during scenes before. And in the old days, they would kind of come out and say, okay, that's enough. Do we need to move on? And we'd pull it together. But now, there's no messing around, and they don't want to waste 1 minute. So it's unacceptable now, and we kind of really keep it together. But Galen Gehring makes me laugh like crazy. I think he is so funny, so cute, and so funny. He reminds me of like a big puppy or something. You know, it's so funny. But you know, there's a fun group there. You know, there's no divas, and so you know, we're all family and it's fun. It made me laugh. If you're ever on Drake Hogestyn, you better have some time because he can really tell stories, and he remembers from Little League, Johnny Brown and I went with Bill Hogan. Like he knows everybody's names and he says everybody's names. So he's funny because he's very detailed about his stories and his people. But I'd say, I'm sure it's Stephen, but it's not because he says something funny. It's the sort of me looking at what we're talking about is what cracks me up. And I have said this before, but that is the burden of this job. Like, I love this job so much, and I hope it goes on until the day I die. It would be fabulous. Can't imagine, but I love it. And every time I walk in the building, in the big warehouse, I kind of look up and say thank you. I don't ever take it for granted, and I love it, and I feel blessed and honored that I'm still hanging in there like this. But the memorizing is really the burden, and when you get your script and you break it down and you think, I have to do it on the weekend so I know what's ahead. I don't really learn them until the night before, and I think that really is because I have to be in a slight panic to focus because I'm a bit of a squirrel, especially if I'm home. Oh, I think I'll clip that rose over there. Oh, that fountain needs some water. I do everything but do it. But there's some sort of frenetic way that I go about this. I thank God I have people around me who actually speak English. But that must be what works for me. The up, down, the this, that, back to it. But the way all of us, I think, do it is over it and over it and over it and over it. And when we, for me, I have to have a pretty good handle on it before I go to sleep. But then often there will come a time where I'll say, do I know it or do I need to sleep? Because sleep is always more important. Because if you're tired, I can't remember anything when I'm tired. So it's that weird little balance. Like I need to be rested and have it pretty good. I can't go to work not having a clue. And there are people who do that there. I don't know how they do it. But some people have never even looked at it before they got there. And I don't know. That makes me so nervous I can't even imagine doing that. So I go over it a million times, but I don't run it with anybody. Like I think Stephen runs it with his wife, but I don't run it with anybody. And maybe because I feel silly, like my husband will think I'm goofy with that inflection or that something. I'm sure he really wouldn't, but for some reason in my head, I don't do it for that reason. Plus, I want to keep this illusion with my family that I actually work at a bank, not actually on that. So, just recently, I don't know if I've already said this probably, but my 24-year-old came to my work for something, and we walked in the building, and he goes, "Wow, this place is really cool." I thought, "I've never brought you here. It's so weird," but it's because I just don't talk about it. But so that's how I do it. I learn it. Then when we get to work, we run it while we're in the makeup and hair chair, and then hopefully we have time and we go to our dressing room and run it. That's with Stephen. There are a few people that like to do it that way. Some people, you just know it. Maybe you run it once in the dressing room, in the makeup room with them, and then you never see them again until you get up there. So different people have different style, but I think that one of the reasons that Stephen and I work so well together is because we really like to run it a lot. I could think of so many, but one thing that was really cool is, even from a little kid, I wanted to be an actress, and I was always doing little plays, so I didn't have to do exams or, get all my friends to be in the plays with me and all these different things. But when I got to high school, I found the theater department, and our theater department was run by a former New York stage manager from Broadway, so he took it all very seriously, and he set some rules for us like real professionals, and a lot of them I still use to this day, like don't chew gum. What's a big one? On that, I chew gum a lot in real life, but not in anything related to acting or speaking or anything. But just some of the things that he taught us have carried on, and he's just so professional. And even when I have a CASA kid, I often will recommend to them to get in a theater department because it's the home for the wayward. It's the home for the misfits. You're just accepted there, and I think there's less judgment. At least there was in my theater department, and you become a family. And I think a lot of people gravitated to that. So I think those were probably my happiest times with my high school theater department. In fact, my best friend, Carrie and Carolyn, two of my best friends, I met in that theater department when I very first arrived. Carrie was a way big she was a year older than me in school, and she was a big star. She was already in Wait Until Dark and these plays, and I thought she was so cool because she was already a working actress. And then she will tell the story that the first time that she saw me is because the first year you couldn't do a play and you had to do be a stagehand, and I was doing the ropes for the curtains and stuff in the back, and I had on a top hat, a surgical top with overalls and fluffy slippers. This was my MO in high school, was being a very eclectic dresser. And she said she saw me and she said to someone like, "Who the heck is that?" or whatever. And for whatever reason, she thought that was fun. She introduced herself to me, and we became really great friends. So, you know, I don't know. I guess I was a misfit, and it was a great place to go. So I'll say this: my best friend Carrie and I talk about this because she thinks that the kids in their 20s is so hard, and that parenting kids in their 20s is actually harder than when they're little, because you can give advice and whatever, but one, they're going to do whatever they want, and two, you have to just stand back and watch things happen, and maybe disappointment and all that. So I would agree with that. And I will say this: it is hard in that way, in that you can't control it, which is why this blog is funny this week when I blow my son's birthday candle out at the end, the one candle that was still burning. Why I said there's a mother for you, because it's like a mother. I've got to help him out a little. No matter how freaking old he is, I have to still blow out that candle, because that's what moms do, right? We always want to help, and we always want to rescue them. And I think sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes it's not, and we have to kind of stand back and say, you know, I'm sure you'll make the right decision. Or the one thing I try to do, and this is, I try not to have judgment. So I think my kids talk to me very freely because I try to really listen, and I'll give them my advice if they want it. And then if they choose to do whatever they want, or, you know, whatever, the boyfriend, the girlfriend stays in the picture, they don't stay in the picture, or whatever happens, or whatever the story is, whether they take the job, they don't take the job, you know, I don't even know the possibilities I could put here, but there's no repercussion on their decision. I totally back them on their decision, and so, but it is hard. It's hard because you can't control it. And you can't make their life what you planned, or your life. So I think that's it. It's so hard to step back, but I think my main thing is I just try to listen and just not be judgmental. That is my biggest thing. And to let them, you know, tell me what they want, and if they want my advice, I'll tell it to them, but they certainly don't have to take it, and they know that I'm not going to judge them. I will say, I don't know if I've done this recipe, but have I made the little French lamb chops before?
That you put in the bag?
Yes, it's a cup of red wine, a cup of soy sauce, rosemary, garlic, mint. So delicious. And and this is kind of expensive. Like when my husband will say, "Let's do this for dinner party," I go, "No, this is like for the two of us," because it's expensive to do it this way. But if you buy the little French rack, and then you have the butcher chop them separate, they're just like this much meat on a little tiny, you know, and you do them in that marinade, and then you grill them, and they're kind of crispy, and there's not too much meat, and you keep them medium rare. I love those with like a sweet potato mash or something like that. But that's probably my favorite. It's a special thing we do only for special occasions, and I'd say that and have I ever done the these are my recipes. Have I ever done the fish in the fish broth? Oh, we got to do that one sometime. I love fish in a yummy broth. So I'll make like steamed bok choy and make this broth and put like a grilled fish on top. It's so good. So I'm gonna do that recipe in the future. Okay. It's funny because I am such a California person. You know, I think it's interesting too, because I know I moved to Chicago when I met my husband, and the weather was such a thing, you know, and here we're just used to it being nice. And and my kids, who were California kids, they don't think necessarily to apply to schools out of this country, because you just think this is, not out of this country, out of the state, say out of this country, because that's it. So California is its own thing. I have a feeling I probably would have tried to come here because I wanted to be an actress my whole life. That's all I wanted to do from like probably age 5 on. So I would have figured out a way, whether it was New York or here. And my friend Carrie and I, like I said, she was more of an actress than I was when I met her. We were going to move to New York out of high school to pursue acting. And then as we looked around, we thought, why don't we just move to Hollywood? Because we lived in about an hour south of here. And then we were looking, and then it came about I was kind of dating this guy who had been to Europe, and he was going to go off to school in Europe, in Germany. And so he said, you guys should go travel around. And so we thought, yeah, let's do that. So the two of us saved a bunch of money for 6 months. We worked a gabillion jobs, and we went to Europe for 5 months. So we didn't go to LA then. And then when we came back, she moved away, and I lived somewhere, and then she moved out, and then I met my husband, and I moved to Chicago. So, you know, and she stopped. I don't know why she never pursued acting. Now that I don't know. I have to ask her someday. I don't know why she didn't, because she didn't do it after high school. But I think I would have found my way here for sure, and I love it here. So, well, like I said, the two of us got these jobs. I mean, I remember we like presented it to our parents, this whole concept that we were going to do this, you know. And they, I mean, I was 17 actually when I graduated from high school, so my mother was kind of like 17 off in Europe. I had my 18th birthday in Marbella, Spain, while we were traveling around. But this guy was there that we knew. He was going to be at that Heidelberg University. So we saved the money, and he had been sort of our mentor in this, which was so doofy because he was like, he had backpacked there. So we went, and we had our backpacks. We had everything completely matching, just slightly different color. Like mine might have been rust and hers burgundy. Like it was just ever so slightly different. But we had big down jackets. We went in, I mean, someday I'll find the picture, but we had our, 501 jeans, flannel shirts, backpacks, hiking boots, whatever. We went around with him for a little while. We never camped. We had sleeping bags and backpacks. We never camped. We stayed in youth hostels. And so eventually, when we got rid of that guy, he traveled around with us for like, maybe 4 weeks or something. And when we got rid of him, then we stayed at the closest cheap hotel. We sent the backpacks and everything home and got like a little sport sack and did it completely different. But we were very loose. We would just go to a country, and we'd go to a big city and a little city, and it's kind of like we'd just go to the train station, whatever was leaving, and whenever close to when we were there, we took that train. And Carrie is way more organized and everything than I am, and we wrote journals, and we still have them, but hers is also beautiful and perfect. And I think we went with the same exact amount of money, and she got presents for her entire family and came home with, the same I did. And I didn't really have presents, and I don't know what I did with it. I don't know what happened to it, but it was that kind of thing. But it was the best time for us, and we went to like almost every country. And we even went up to, we took a train once all the way up to Copenhagen to get clogs, and only stayed there long enough to get clogs, and then we came back, and we spent a month on the south side of Crete in Greece, and that was super fun.
Da 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 da.